Treating my life like a video game, 2022 half-year update. So this is essentially just a checkpoint for this point of the year. Now, at the time this is being recorded, it's actually after the 30th of June 2022. But all of these little updates will be as at 30th of June. So you can see those little statistics there as if it's like a video game, similar to how Tier Zoo ranks his animals and whatnot. But what do they mean? This shows 7 distinct areas of my life and how I think I'm going with their stat progression, and we will delve into that shortly. So here's a projected update for the end of 2023. Now, the reason I've got the end of 2023 instead of 2022 is because there's obviously there's a lot you can do in 6 months, but I just reckon you can get a lot more done in 18 months, which is obvious, but you'll see why I've chosen 2023 instead and why I think I'll reach these stats by then. So as you can see, we've got career, money, education and skills, aesthetics, investor, and online brands, and then there's happiness as well. I'll go into that later, but basically those are just where I think I'm at with all of those stats, and we'll delve into that now. So career, this is where I'm at this point in time. I've got 18 months industry accounting experience. I've got about 4 months public accounting experience. I've got about 6 months in part-time junior accounting experience in a public practice as well. I've got a 3-month internship at the Australian Taxation Office as experience. I've had 2 years experience as a secretary at a university club. I've had 7 months personal trainer experience, which doesn't really tie into the whole accounting thing, but there are some transferable soft skills which I've touched on in other videos. And then I've got about 10 years retail experience. I'm a couple months off that, but it's pretty much 10 years. Now, as for education, I've finished 3 CPA units, which is Australian Taxation, Digital Finance and Ethics and Governance. I've finished CTA 1 Foundations at the Tax Institute. I've finished a graduate certificate of Artificial Intelligence for Business as well. I've also obviously got my Bachelor of Commerce degree with my accounting major. I've got a Cert 4 in Fitness. And the rest of those, Science of Nutrition course, Strength Systems Volume 1, Barbell Fundamentals, Boxing course, and Kettlebell Movements. Those are just personal trainer related education that, I mean, I paid money for it and I put time into it, so I'm going to count it towards my overall career. And I've also got a fascia course and a injury prevention course as well. I can't exactly remember what their official names are, so I'll just list them down here anyway. But yeah, I paid good money to attend those and I did learn a fair bit, so I'm going to count that. So this slide's just going to be a little comparison between myself and I guess the average. Now, it may come across as slightly arrogant or gloaty, but I think it puts it into perspective that some people just aren't trying. So if you put in the effort, you'll get ahead. So for me, I've got a job tied to market skills and a job tied to award raises. So the job tied to market skills, that's accounting. So there's obviously the labor market, and then in that labor market, there's a sector that's specific towards skilled labor, which is labor that you sort of need like specific training for, like accounting. There's obviously plenty others like medicine, any trades, dentistry, teaching, engineering, just to name a few. There's obviously countless more, but having a job tied to market skills means you can upskill yourself and command more salary and benefits, I guess you could say. So that's a good way to increase your monetary stat, as well as it's just a game increasing your career stat as well. And then the job tied to award raises, that's Woolworths, the supermarket job. So recently in Australia, the Fair Work Commission basically mandated an award raise or a minimum wage increase, and that also helps awards. It also increases the pay rate for anyone on awards as well, which includes Woolworths, so I didn't do anything to receive this pay rise. I think we deserve it, but it's not like we can negotiate that with Woolworths or anything. So yeah, there's also the 2 jobs. So it's a varied skill set. Like I've got retail experience and accounting experience. So heaven forbid I lose any jobs, I've got the skills to just go and get a new one, especially in those 2 fields as there's a lot of demand in them. And then there's additional education for me as well. So barrier blocking other candidates, that's basically some defensive stat that prevents other opponents from, I guess, poaching my source of income. So if you're going to try and get my job, you're separated by a 3-year degree, as well as the fact that, you know, I'm obviously good enough at my job to not be fired, but the point is that's just extra defense for one of my sources of income. And then we've got the average person. They've probably got like a dead-end job, maybe only one job. Not that there's anything wrong with one job, but like obviously you've only got like one skill set there. But you could obviously have something like nursing that, it's pretty hard to work 2 jobs as a nurse because your roster rotates so much, and obviously nursing's like a 24/7 job, whereas accounting is kind of just 9 to 5, unless you work for like the Big 4 or anything like that. In that case, your hours are pretty much like 27 rather than 24/7, but you get the point. The average also doesn't have any additional education to back themselves up. So, that's just another point for education. That's just another reason why education's a good thing in terms of this game, because it provides a bit of extra defense for your job and your career. So at the moment, I rank myself as 15%. So why have I ranked myself as 15% out of 100 for career? Well, I've only really got 1.5 years of experience total. And if you've seen any jobs online, they tend to ask for a bit more experience than just, 1.5 years. They tend to ask for 3 or 5. So I found that 10 to 15 is the sort of sweet spot. You never really see jobs that ask for like 20 or 30 years experience unless it's like something super advanced, but even then that's a rarity. Now, the company I work for, although I enjoy the job a lot, it's not as prestigious as working for, I guess, Apple or Amazon or a big tech company or like the government or something like that. So it's still good, but obviously being an assistant accountant at X store isn't as fancy or glamorous as working at like a Big 4 firm or a massive multinational company. You know what I mean? And then I'm also halfway through my primary qualification, which is CPA. So once I get that, that's probably an automatic 30% bump, because that's obviously very difficult to get, and most employers look favorably upon that. And no awards for a half-done job. Exactly. Remember Kobe Bryant, job's not done. So the fact that I'm halfway there doesn't really mean a lot. It means a bit to me, but to employers, it can mean something that, you've started, but they don't give half CPA qualifications, you know what I mean? You either have it or you don't. And another thing I've noticed is a few of my connections on LinkedIn who graduated uni before I did, they haven't gone on to study CPA. So that just means I've got a bit of extra defense again. In terms of my career, I've got heightened stats that helps me trounce the competition. So now we got money. So at the moment, I'm on about $56,000 as a salary for my full-time job. Now, I've actually recently negotiated a salary increase. In fact, I asked for it on the 1st of July. So I guess a day after this checkpoint, but this is set to increase. I don't exactly know what I'll get. I asked for 64K, I provided my reasons. I think I might get 62 or 63K, but maybe I'll get some other fringe benefits that'll add up to 64K. But as it stands, we're on 56K at the moment. And then I approximately earn 28,000 per annum from Woolies from doing the weekend shifts. Now, this changes because sometimes I'll do extra shifts and then I'll work public holidays, and sometimes one of my weekend shifts will fall on a public holiday of some sort. Like the last couple of years, Christmas and Boxing Day and New Year's Day have been around a Saturday or a Sunday, and same with Anzac Day. So that gives me extra money for, I guess, really, I mean, for public holiday rates, but essentially no reason. Like I was going to show up to do this shift anyway, and now I get extra money. So now here in Australia, the superannuation has been increased. The superannuation payment that employers need to pay on top of your salary, on top of your wage, has been increased to 10.5% recently. It used to be 9.5%, then it was 9.75, and then it was 10. Now it's 10.5. So that's like extra money that it gets put into superannuation. So that's kind of like your Roth IRA for you Americans listening. It's basically like your retirement fund. So I count this as well because, I mean, you technically do earn this just because you don't really have access to it unless you have some exceptional circumstances, but I'm not going to go into that here. But basically, that's another 10.5% on top of these salary payments. So the approximate annual projection is around 95,000. It's probably going to be a bit more because of an anticipated pay raise at my job. Although if I do get it, I'm not sure when it'll actually be enacted, but I don't know. Including super, I made roughly that this year or this past financial year. So hopefully that'll only increase next financial year. Obviously we want to try and do progressive overload with life, not just gym, but we got to beat our stats from last time, become better at the game. So even if you take out super, that's still around 86, 85k, something like that, which is definitely above average, especially for my age. I'm 25, I'll be 26 soon. But for the average or median 25-year-old in Australia, that's a bit above average. Obviously, you've got some outliers, like some people who've like started a pretty good business. They're few and far between though. People who work in the mines as well. So mining's pretty big here in Australia, especially over in Western Australia. You earn good money there, but the conditions are just pretty rough. 12 to 14 hour days, physical labor. You're working for several days in a row without a break. Although I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. Like if you count like study and gym as work, like you're not exactly relaxing. I do enjoy those things, but you're not exactly relaxing. So I guess I also do 12-hour days when you factor it all in. And then I haven't had a break in like 44 days at the time of recording as well. So, but my job's, Woolies is a little bit labor intensive, but it's not like mining or anything. But the point of me bringing that up was there are people my age who earn a lot more, but given the chance to, I guess, swap out of what I'm doing to do what they're doing, like I don't think if someone offered me some mining job that paid really good money tomorrow, I probably wouldn't take it, just because although money is important, it's not everything. And I prefer to be on my little grind at the moment. So point is, above average money for my age. Now this salary is somewhat affordable given my location. So for example, if I lived in California, there'd be no way this would be enough to get by. Now, although salary and wages would be higher in that area instead, but like the point is, there are plenty of other areas that you hear earn a lot more, but if you think about where they are, like Toronto, New York, I think Chicago's pretty expensive too, California, like I said. I think Tokyo might be expensive as well, Sydney as well, here in Melbourne. Like all those places are pretty expensive to live. I'm not too sure about Tokyo. I imagine it is, but the point is, given my area, this is pretty decent money. If I lived somewhere more expensive, the salaries in those areas would like expand. Although I don't know about the supermarket thing, but the full-time job definitely would be a bit more if I lived in a higher income area. Oh, well, in a higher cost of living area. So anyway, here's just a comparison. So above average income from both jobs, 86k. I don't really like, the reason I combine the incomes is because, well, I mean, I am earning this, so although it's not from one job, it is still what I earn in a week, well, per annum. And another thing that's tacked onto the money stat is my main accounting job pays for my education, so that's a bit of extra money as well. And then I get supermarket discounts on my groceries and stuff. Like, it's not a heap, but it adds up at the end of the year. So I tallied that in my 2021 sort of accomplishments video, and I'll probably do the same for 2022. I'll definitely tally up the supermarket discounts I received. I've got a running total of that sheet as well, so we'll check that at the end of the year. So the average I found earns about 58,000 in Australia. However, I've also seen something that says 91,000 is the average, but I'm not really looking too much into that at the moment because it's not like I'm done with my career. Once I get my CPA and a few more years experience, that's when my salary will start to really go up a bit more. And then my boss was telling me in that salary negotiation, he said something along the lines of, when you get your CPA, I reckon you should be awarded for that. So there's probably a bit of a pay bump once I get that as well. So there's other little snippets on screen showing you just some more, I guess, average salary data I could find, but they're kind of all over the shop. So I've ranked myself as 60% in this stat. So why did I rank myself as 60%? Well, for starters, I'm above average for my age, but there's obviously room for improvement. Like, I'm not even on six figures yet when you factor in superannuation. Like, you may when you factor in, I guess, appreciation in the value of my land, potential unrealized capital gains on stocks. Not that they're going too well at the moment, but I found some cool little foreign exchange trades that seem to be paying off, and at the current moment they'll probably continue to pay off, but we'll see how that goes. Obviously things change, so by the time you're watching this, that may not even be a thing at the moment, but I digress. Now, 100% for this stat, I forgot to mention it in my career thing, but like 100% for that would be like a super stable career, like that pays well. So like 15 years accounting experience, like you can pretty much go to most accounting jobs and you'd be like one of the best candidates. And if you have your CPA, so it's not like to get my career stat to 100%, I need to be like a partner at the biggest accounting firm ever. Like, it just means you have to be like basically as good as it gets. So for those of you who play Pokemon, just because your Pokemon's level 100 doesn't mean they're the best Pokemon there is, because there's other level 100 Pokemon as well. But it does mean that they've maxed out their potential and they're pretty good. So as for money being 60%, well, yeah, like I said, because I'm above average, but 100% doesn't mean I'm at Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos level of wealth, even though net worth is different to cash in the bank. But even though net worth is different from cash in the bank, but it's not like 100% I need to be like a billionaire. That would just, 100% for me would be something like a little more around 150k-ish, I reckon. But I'm not sure if I'll ever earn that. I might, given the rate of inflation, because the cost of everything will go up, so the cost of wages and salaries will also go up, so potentially towards the later half of my life. But yeah, I'd consider something around 150k to be like 100%, because like, how much money do you need? I don't really have aspirations to have a mansion beside the beach. It'd be nice, but like, I'm not really too fussed. Like, I've got pretty cheap taste. So for me, around 150,000-ish would be the around like 100% mark. Now, the math doesn't exactly add up with 150,000 being 100% and whatever I'm earning here to be 60%, but it's just like rough video game stats, you know what I mean? So education and skills, this is kind of like a mix between, I guess, the first two in terms of like career and money. So for me, I've got a degree. I will have my CPA qualification eventually. I've got a Cert 4 in fitness, retail supervisor. There's no formal title on my role, but essentially, I guess I am sort of a supervisor in terms of my role. Like the store manager will come to me asking for stuff, and the other staff will ask me of, what needs done, or this needs done. Can you help us with this? Oh, do you reckon you can like mark this product down for me? Oh, hey, this broke. What do I do with this? So I can say that. I can say it on my resume and get away with it. But Woolies doesn't really have like a formal title on it. But anyway, the point is I got a lot of retail experience. And I got the other education stuff as mentioned before. So education and skills, it's basically like how stable and secure your skill set is. So as you'll notice that I've put my stat up for this area pretty high. And the reason being is like there's always jobs in retail. Like I could pretty much get a job at most warehouses and most retail outlets with my like 10 years of Woolies experience. So that's a transferable skill that I can go and get more sources of income from if I want. And then obviously education with like what limited experience I have in accounting, but there's also my degree and my CPA and all the other stuff I mentioned before. So and obviously accounting is like an industry that's growing and in high demand, relatively high demand, not as much as teaching or nursing, but it's still pretty high demand. Like I can go into Seek and find other accounting jobs, no problem. It's not something that is really scarce. So I guess I added this because if I had two jobs in two very niche, unique, distinct fields, and I lost both of those jobs, it's not like I'd be able to easily find another job, because if those are such rare skill sets and like rare jobs, then like where else are you going to get a job? So I hope that makes sense. It's just another way for me to look at working at Woolies and studying a lot. Sometimes you can be like, oh, what's the point? Like you get those down days, like I'll push through, no problem. You get into ruts sometimes where you keep going, but this is just another way to look at it. Like, well, look at how stable your skill set is. You're going to be harder to replace in the workforce. So as for me, I've got my degree and further qualifications soon in a stable industry. So here's an example. Divers make a lot of money. So I'm talking about divers that go underground and like do welding for like pipes and stuff. I haven't looked too much into it because it's never like, what's the point? Like I will never work in that sort of field. But the only reason I know about it is because every now and then I go through like a phase of watching like horror stuff on YouTube, like scary stories that happened in real life. And then there's a few involving people who were divers and they go into decompression chambers. And I've seen this one where there's a group of 4 guys and the pressure got messed up or something when they were like transferring from one pod to another, and they all like exploded. Sounds pretty gruesome, but that's how I know of these jobs, because some people in the comments like, why would anyone do this? Like, yeah, have you seen how much money they get paid? But let's just say you are a diver like that and you lose that job. Well, where are you going to go? Like, maybe there might be another diving job in that area, but it's not like you can just go for a drive around the block and find like another accounting firm, for example, in my instance. Or if you're a teacher, oh, well, there's another primary school down the other side of town, that'll be right. Or if you're a nurse, there's always another hospital. Like that. I hope you get the point. Like, there are people who make good coin, but you'll find that their skill set's really specialized and they're a little bit in trouble if something goes south with their current job. So this stat may not matter to you, and it kind of really doesn't. If you're good enough at your job, you shouldn't really have a problem, but I like to just count it as a stat anyway. But we'll go into that later in the video. I'll talk about other stats that might be applicable to you. So another thing for my education and skills is I've got a lot of experience in a very stable industry, which is the supermarket job. Now, despite being a scrub, so I'm not like a manager. Supervisor is not a manager, but although I am basically just a low-level worker who's on the sort of minimum award, the job is extremely stable and will be required until robots replace me, but even then human skills will still be required. So even if Woolworths came out tomorrow and there's like, hey, there's a bunch of robots to do your job, half of you are going to lose your role. It's unlikely I'd be one of them because I'm one of the more experienced people and I get paid the same as everyone else. So why would you get rid of the guy who's sort of been there and knows what to do? That's just a random thought. Obviously a supermarket job is quite stable. And then as for the average person, they don't usually have a degree, or if they do, it's a useless one. I mentioned that in a video before. So yeah, you're going to university or college to increase your employment prospects and earn more money in the late game. But if you're going to pick if you're going to go to all that trouble, culling off years of if you're going to reduce some of the years in your life to go and pursue an education, not saying that like those years are completely wasted and useless, but there's a lot of other things you could do with that time. And if you're going to decrease your money stat and increase your debt obligations for the purpose of winning in the late game, you're going to want to make sure it's actually going to pay off. If you pick something useless, it's going to kind of hinder you. It's a good achievement to get a degree regardless, but it's probably best if you picked one that's useful. So another thing, useful trade is just as good as a useful degree, especially in Australia. So I'm going to make a video on that soon. It's going to be like office jobs versus trades. So trades in Australia are extremely good, but in some cases trades are better than the useful degree. But for me, manual labor to earn my income, no thanks. I'd rather pick the old office job. Side tangent, but when you see people complaining about the whole rat race 9 to 5, they always use an example of an office job. They never use a nurse or a teacher or someone working out in construction. It's always the office job. I've never understood why. Like, I can see how a lot of people don't want to be in an office, but for me, that's the dream. Like I would, I can see myself doing this forever until I die. But yeah, I digress. But the point I'm getting at here is most people don't have some sort of higher education to back up. Most people don't have like a useful trade or some higher education in an in-demand field to back up their skill set. Now, no secondary experience in other field. That's just my 2 jobs thing again. I've touched on that before, but it's not super important. So I've put myself as 80% for this. So why 80%? Well, I've got the degree, which is a big thing. Like, a degree is a pretty big accomplishment and it takes a lot of time and effort. So that is a big factor into why this stat is 80%. I got my foot in the door, so that's basically talking about my job. So 1.5 years experience, that is a pretty big head start, all things considered. Obviously, it doesn't mean I'm very far ahead in my career, but worst case scenario, I can still go and switch to like other grad jobs or like intermediate jobs. Not advanced, obviously, but I have a really good head start. And then CPA halfway through. So now, like I said before, they don't give awards for being half done with the CPA unit, but if employers see that you're halfway through, it does increase how they see you in their eyes. So that's like the 3 primary requirements for like my accounting anyway. You got a bit of experience, you got the base degree, and you're doing your CPA or your CA in Australia and New Zealand. So in America, and I don't know where else, but I know for a fact America, I think it's just CPA. Whereas in Australia, we have CPA and we have this thing called CA, which is a chartered accountant, and that's for like Australia and New Zealand. I found that CPA is more if you do like industry work, which is like accounting for a specific business, whereas chartered accountant is where you do like public accounting, so just work in an accounting firm. Anyone can walk in and say, hey, can you do my tax return? That kind of accounting, whereas my accounting is more so just for this business. Like you can't walk into the office I work at and say, hey, can you do my taxes? Like that's not what I do. So 10 years retail experience is enough to get a job in any supermarket, store or warehouse. Yeah, like I mentioned that. I mentioned this before. So for me to get to 100% in this stat, I reckon I need to have 5 years accounting experience, because obviously that's a lot of experience. It's not peaking out your career, but in terms of like your stable skill set, it's peaking that out. And then CPA qualified for 2+ years. So once you've like had a bit of time under your belt of being a CPA, that really solidifies your skill set. And then 15 years retail experience, I think that's pretty good. So that's what I consider to be 100% in this stat. So this is a side tangent I just wanted to mention, and I figured I'd mention it here since I'm talking about like skill set and basically employability and employment stability. That's, I guess, another way you could word this stat list. But I mentioned before how the Fair Work Commission, which is some government body here in Australia, mandated a pay rise for, I guess, most workers. So the two companies I work for, they're a small business and a large business, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, which is a supermarket. Now, although my main job is considered a small business, I'd argue it's more medium-sized, because like our turnover is pretty significant. Like, although it's technically considered like a small business, it's not like some business with like 2 employees. We've got a fair bit, so I'd consider us medium. But although I guess if you want to go by strict definitions, we're a small business. But regardless, the point of me bringing this up is the government mandating a 5.2% or a 4.6% raise. It depends, but like that's not important. Is going to harm small business owners. The business I work for will weather this storm. I'm fairly certain we'll weather this storm at least. But I feel for the others that won't. So I've seen a lot of, I guess, articles and a lot of like snippets from news reports of small business owners talking about how they're not going to be able to survive this little wage increase they need to pass on to their employees, or how they might have to pass on the cost to consumers, but they're like, well, now our stuff's going to get way too expensive, we're going to lose business. The reason I bring this up is I won't be specifically impacted by this. Like, I'm not going to lose a job based on a wage increase. Like, Woolies will have to pay more, but like, boohoo, they beat their earnings last quarter. They'll weather this storm no problem. And so will my main firm. But if I worked for like 2 small businesses like that, this stat might be a bit lower. But then again, this stat's also talking about my skill set. So I guess maybe it wouldn't, but I wanted to bring this up anyway. So this wage increase is going to contribute to a wage price spiral. Now, however, if my little short calculations are correct that I did, I'll be better off, providing you exclude petrol. So when businesses have to pay their staff more, they have to increase the costs of their end product, which increases the cost for consumers, which means they have to go back to their bosses and say, hey, the cost of everything's going up, I need a pay rise. So then their boss will give them a pay rise. And then the boss at that place has to increase the costs of their outputs to offset the amount of money they have to pay their employees, and the cycle continues. So by making businesses pay their staff more, that extra, I guess, purchasing power for those employees is going to get eroded away through more inflation anyway. But for me, the pay rises that I'll get won't actually, like, they'll actually end up in a net. I'll end up with more disposable income at the end of the day anyway. So yeah, just thought I'd touch on that. But to wrap it up, I reckon I'm at 80% with this stat. So, aesthetics. For me, I've got decent muscle development. I'm at a decent body fat percentage. Like, obviously, it's not super lean, but obviously staying super lean year round is not healthy, and it doesn't matter because I know how to cut down anyway, so you can give me 3 months and I'll be lean. I could probably do it in less, but obviously you want to be healthy and sustainable with this stuff. I got a skincare routine. You'd be surprised how many people don't have that. So that helps, like, I guess, your facial aesthetics. I've had dental work done. I've had braces in the past, and I've just finished all my dental appointments with my dentist to get rid of whatever small amounts of tooth decay I had. So that's good. I'm going to have all my teeth later in life, hopefully, as long as someone doesn't punch me in the face. I get Botox, so I age slower. Now, this will be important if you're on a Sigma male grind, a topic for another day. I get laser hair removal as well, so I get a lot fewer shaving rashes. I found I was getting a lot of shaving rashes down my, like, pelvis region back in, like, the uni days. But ever since I got laser, these don't really tend to be there anymore, so that's helpful. And then obviously same applies for the rest of my body, so that's always good. And I do mewing as well. I basically just chew gum on the drive to work every day, so that'll help the jawline when I cut down. So, you know, all a part of the aesthetics. So comparing me to the average person, I've got more muscle than the average. I'm not a bodybuilder by any means anymore, but I definitely have a lot more muscle than the average person. I'm a lower body fat percentage, so I don't know, I'm around 13-15% at the moment, but that's still a lot lower than most people who are like 22% plus if you're a male. I don't know what the female equivalent is, 32%, not too sure, but point is I'm below average in body fat. I've got a sound diet and solid nutritional knowledge. In case you couldn't tell from my most recent video, I tend to sort of know a bit about this stuff. There's obviously more to know, but like that's more than enough to get me by for a while. I've got a good workout regime and it's relatively consistent. So I got a mental switch for the gym, which is easily flicked on and off. So whenever I have exams, I basically don't go to the gym for 2 to 3 weeks before that exam starts, and I just cram for the exam. And pretty much a day after the exam's done, then I will go straight back to gym. So some people need they're really sluggish with getting back into it, but I can get back into it straight away because I've gone for years and years and I know how to flick that switch, which a lot of people don't have that. That's something you gotta it's something that sort of just comes with due time. And then there's other aesthetic related appointments like the Botox and the laser hair removal and stuff like that. So not only will I age slower, but like I'll maintain some of the looks. Some people sort of really let themselves go after a while. So that's me. And then the average person doesn't really gym. They've got lower muscle mass. They've got higher body fat percentage. They don't really know about nutrition. Like they couldn't tell you how many grams of protein they have in the day, which most gym rats at least know about. So they don't know stuff like that. And they let themselves go in terms of like their face as well as their body, which obviously is what I was just talking about. So I've plugged myself at 74% with this stat. So why 74%? Well, becoming an Olympia level bodybuilder is not 100% for me. For me, 100% is quite a large frame, larger muscles, and being lean. So I need a few more kilos of extra muscle and to drop around 4 to 5% body fat, and that'll be 100%. Obviously, that sounds a lot easier than what it actually is. A few kilos of muscle is a lot. And then obviously I need to do a very long solid bulk to get that, and then I'd have to cut down. But if I bulked that hard, I'd probably have to cut like 10 to 12% body fat as opposed to 4 to 5, maybe even more, but we'll see. Another thing, I could always optimize hormones, which I might touch on later, but let's move on. Now, for the general population, I look pretty decent. Pretty for Instagram standards, but, you know, the Gen Pop isn't really going to look and say, oh, yeah, your traps need work, your biceps could be bigger. Like, the Gen Pop just knows I'm in, like, decent shape. Now, that's not to say I work out for the validation of others, but my visual appeal is somewhat in line with what the Gen Pop would think anyway. So, as I said, for me, 100% is not an Olympia level bodybuilder. It's like a pretty decent like athletic look. Now, although I've slipped off in recent years from my peak, I'm not really too far off now that I think about it. So I say that I've slipped off a fair bit, but it's not that bad, all things considered. Now, again, for Gen Pop and my own eyes, I'm really not terrible. It's just a bit of body dysmorphia that eats at you, but that happens to everyone in the gym game. Now, furthermore, Botox, dental, and laser adds points as it will pay aesthetic dividends. So obviously I've seen results now, but later down the track, those things will really play a role. So my investor stat. So for me, I understand the basics of investing. So, you know, inflation erodes purchasing power of fiat currency and your money loses value in a bank account. So, you know, invest in appreciating assets like stocks, real estate. People say bonds, but bonds actually tend to be... I'm not really too well versed in the bond market, but from what I have seen, inflation is sort of outpacing the returns you'd get on bonds anyway. Outside the scope of this video, but the stock and crypto market's kind of doing a bit Well, not a bit they're doing really and they're going to get even worse. And real estate's set to drop soon. It's not going to drop like a whole heap like what everyone's thinking. It's just not going to happen. It's going to drop a bit, but it's not going to like completely crash. But I digress. So I understand financial statements in terms of investing. So, you know, when your company has their reports and stuff, I kind of know what's going on with the figures. I don't really look at them too much anymore because a lot of YouTube channels will basically run through that for me, and I'll just listen to it on the drive to work or listen to it while I'm at work or like in the shower or whatever, or while I'm cooking dinner. But I understand what's going on basically. I also know macroeconomic factors as well, which is a big thing. Grasps the concept of short selling, leverage trading, and other financial jargon. So yeah, basically all the financial terms, I understand what they mean. General idea of real estate markets. Yeah, I'm not a real estate agent by any means, but I kind of get the investing gist of things. So those are what I've written there. Understands technical analysis, options trading, bond market, and foreign exchange. That's just rough percentages of how confident I am. Obviously, if those were at 100%, I'd know everything related to them. But, you know, we'll slowly get there. In terms of investing, I own land or real estate. I have stocks, so I have exposure to the stock market. I've got crypto, which is exposure to the crypto market. And then I own commodities and foreign currencies. Now, although I consider those to be under the same umbrella as stocks, but they're technically different. So I got exposure to all of them, and I kind of know a bit about them. Obviously, there's more work to be done in terms of learning it, but I got a pretty good head start. So me versus the average, I understand the primary concept of investing, so purchasing power. Investing is a percentage game too. Like, you're not going to make $1 million investing if you invest $1,000. Like, it's a percentage multiplier on whatever you put in. So if you put $100 in, you know, expect $5 to $10 maybe if you're good, but don't expect like $1,000 or like $10,000 or anything. Now, I know where to look for information. So this is the same when I was starting out with gym. You got to really trawl through all the crap until you find the golden tidbits. So I've trawled through a lot of rubbish in 2021, and I found some pretty good stuff in 2022. So that's obviously a big help. I got a solid baseline of knowledge in all fields in the financial world. Briefly touched on that before. okay. I got an okay head start on investing. So the best time to start was years and years ago. The next best time is now. A bad time to start is later, and the worst time to start is never. So, at least I started. That's the main thing. If I started earlier, it would have been a lot better, but hey, you live and learn. And at least I have land, so yeah, that's pretty hard to get at the moment, at least where I am. So at least I got that. That's a big thing. Now, the average person doesn't understand the importance of investing. They think, oh, I'll just put my money in the bank account. She'll be right. No, she won't. They don't understand these concepts either. They have no idea what's going on with the economy. Like, I guess people know about Russian sanctions, but they don't really know the implications of that. They don't really know, like, foreign currencies, for example, etc. Although that pertains to the stock market, which most people don't really know about anyway. If they want to catch up with me in terms of this, they got a lot of work to do to become familiar with it. And in that meantime, I'm only going to enhance and add on to the knowledge I've already got. So I've got quite a big head start. Unlikely to be a homeowner. Yeah, unfortunately, most people aren't going to be homeowners at this rate. But that's a topic for another day. So I've put myself as 35% for my investor stat. So why 35%? Well, the land is not 100% secure yet. Like, I paid 5% for it, and I don't actually owe anything. Like, nothing is due at the moment. I still owe, like, a fair bit on it, but nothing's due yet. At this stage, I should be fine, but it's not 100% secure yet. So there is a lose scenario where I lose the land, but I'm doing my best to prevent that from happening, and it's a low likelihood as well. I'm years away from a home being built on the land too, so the house will obviously add value, and then obviously it's just a good asset to have as well. And I only really started in 2021. I kind of started late 2017, early 2018, but like, I didn't really know much at all. I basically just put some money in some crypto because it was becoming all the rave amongst a few of my friends, but I didn't really know anything. So I really only started in 2021, and it's only 2022, so I need a lot more years of market exposure before I can really bump this too much higher. I need more of a grasp on technical analysis, so I kind of get it, but I haven't really looked at it and traded off of it. Once I start doing that, I'll be able to bump this stat up a bit more. More learning required on foreign exchange, so I've started to dabble in it recently, and it seems to be going well, but there's obviously a lot more to know because I've only really touched US dollars in terms of its relation to the Australian dollar, the Japanese yen, the euro, and the Great British pound. There's obviously a lot more currencies out there, so a lot more currencies means a lot more to learn. I don't have rental income because I don't have the house yet, so once I have the house, chances are my plan at the moment is to build it with 4 bedrooms and rent out 3 of them. But we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I have enough space to have a 4-bedroom house, to be honest. Maybe I'll only have 3, and I might not even rent out at all. Maybe I'll like my peace and quiet, but we'll see how we go. But regardless, I don't have rental income, which is basically one of the main things that you hear from most investors. Now, commodity information is not as common to me for now. I mentioned before how I kind of get commodities, but there's a lot more that I haven't really looked into. So once I look into them, I will be able to bump this stat up more. And I need more money in the markets, so you can't be a big investor dog with less than 30,000 in the market. So all up in crypto and stocks, I've probably put a bit under 30k in there, but that's rookie numbers, got to pump them up. So yeah. Another thing is investing in an early age startup would be pretty good to bump up my investor stat, but yeah, given all this at the moment, I can't really justify putting myself up any higher than 35%, although I do believe that this will be a fair bit higher in the coming years. So online brands, so that's what you're watching this from. So I've started it, obviously, but I've actually made a start. Like, a lot of people think about doing it, but you got to jump in the deep end and see if you can swim. So don't be scared, just jump in. But yeah, taking that first step is obviously a big accomplishment. So I have more than 0 subscribers and followers, which is a pretty good start. So there's quite a few posts across all social media platforms. So if someone actually was to click on the brand, there's actually something there for them to like watch and read. So that's obviously another start. I've established a niche. So this channel, I guess the niche was self-improvement, but with like a twist. Instead of more motivational stuff, there's more like tidbit stuff. Like, oh, okay, cool, I want to go to the gym. All right, what do I do at the gym though? Oh, cool, I want to start investing, make more money. Oh, well, how do I go about that? Oh, sweet, all right, I'm going to go and get a career and like make a resume. Oh, wait, well, how do I do that? So I guess that's the niche I've got here on the YouTube channel, at least. On Instagram, it tends to be more focused towards the stock market, but obviously that there's a lot involved in that and things change a lot. So obviously that's going to be more tailored to that. So another thing is I'm committed to working on them. So like I've ingrained it in my personality. Like I haven't really, there's maybe 1 or 2 of my friends who kind of know about gamification, but they don't really know about this. Although obviously if they went onto that social media, they could find this one tagged. But basically when I think of myself, I think of myself as like a brand owner as well, like someone who owns this stuff. So if it's ingrained into my personality, I'm a lot more likely to keep at it. So one thing is gamification of life acts as a portfolio for my career. So basically, if I'm to apply at some government job, for example, in economics, and they say, what do you know? I can show them the Instagram stuff and be like, hey, I've been interested in this stuff for ages. Here's what I know. Here's like my diverse skill set of stuff I know. So worst case scenario, this brand doesn't get monetized. It acts as a bit of a portfolio for my actual career. And then gamification acts as like a portfolio for if I ever have some personal trainer job I need to go for. So there's that as well. And I got countless ideas for both brands. So some fizzle out after a few videos, run out of ideas. So I've seen this with a few of my friends. Like they have like YouTube channels as well, but they've made like 2 videos and they've just ditched because they didn't have the, I guess they didn't have the gene required to keep at it. Maybe they got busy or sidetracked. Maybe they didn't see the point, but I am committed to working on this stuff. Like I'll upload as much as I can and put as much good stuff as I can. But like, obviously I do have other stuff in my life. So the point of me saying that is if I go a bit of time without uploading, it's not because I've given up. It's because I've just got other priorities at the moment, but I'll always be back. I've also got so much more gym info for gamification, and the stock market's ever evolving and my career is always developing. So there's always going to be stuff for me to talk about. I like to talk about, I guess, my experiences with things and like what other people have shown. So, you know, there's always stuff for me to post on these online brands is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, as for me in terms of these brands, I've got the names established and sorted, and then I've got a social media account on several platforms for them. So, you know, that's a pretty big start, as well as actually having content on them. The niches are established. One's primarily about like career, money, stocks, stuff like that. And the other one's like gym related, you know, nutrition, training, fascia, hormones, supplements, stuff like that. And then the countless ideas for future content. So yeah, I briefly touched on that before, but sometimes people just have a couple ideas and they run out. So I've got so many ideas. I've got like a whole Word doc that's like 2.5 pages at the moment of video ideas, and that only just keeps growing. And obviously I need to actually get through that list before I run out of ideas. But every time I finish one video, I've got 5 more ideas pop into my head. So this will be going for a while. Now, the average person, they usually have no brand social media account. Like, they have a personal one, but it's not really a brand. Sometimes they might use themselves as a brand. That is a good idea for me. I like to sort of live this double life where nobody at my work or my gym even knows that I have this stuff. So it's a nice little secret life. So the problem with, I guess, using yourself as your brand is if you do something, I guess, controversial online, you won't be able to escape it, and if everyone knows about it too. So if you're at your job and then I guess you do some live stream where you say something offensive or whatever, and then the next day at work everyone knows about it, you know, you can't really escape. Like, if I say something out of pocket, where like I can always just, I guess, bail, and it won't really impact my work or anything because they don't know about this. That's just like one scenario. Obviously, there are pros to having your brand as a part of your personal identity too. Like, for example, if, like I mentioned before, the personal portfolio thing, like if I was to ever show them this, I would use like a fake name or like screenshots, but then blur out the name. For example, say, hey, yeah, this is my stuff. Take a little selfie with the, I guess, YouTube home channel so they can see that, oh yeah, edit profile, that's his channel, for example. As well as, I guess, the clout, if you're after that. Like, if you have a pretty decent online brand and it's associated with your face, you get a bit of fame, if that's what's important to you. But, you know, this video isn't a pros and cons of your brand name being tied to your face. So I'm going to move on. So yeah, no commitment to the brand. So another thing I've noticed, even if it's not YouTube channels, a lot of people tend to make Instagram pages or Facebook pages for like some small business they've got. They make 2 or 3 posts, and then the only sort of followers they tend to get are just from their friends, from the initial, hey, I've set up a page, everyone go like it, and everyone's supporting them. Yeah, you go, you know, good stuff. King emoji, Yas Queen, fire emoji, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's very short-lived. So the point of me bringing that up is I'm committed for the long run. So I've plugged this stat as only 10%. So why? Well, for starters, there's no monetization. So the reason that I've put online brands as a stat is because of scaling your income. So although I always talk about like career, obviously there are only so many hours in the week you can work, and there's only so much your salary can go up. Like, for me personally, I will never have a salary of 200k plus. Like, there are some accountants that can earn that if you're like really high up in like some big accounting firm in New York or California. But for me, that's not, like, I'm not willing to put in like 16-hour days for years on end in terms of like my career. Like, I'll split that up between like, you know, 9 hours at the career, couple hours at the gym, couple hours studying, couple hours side hustle, but I wouldn't do the full thing for a career. So that means I'll never earn that kind of money. But if you have like an online brand, you can like scale it out. So obviously, I said before, even if it doesn't get monetized in any way, it's like a portfolio for my career. But obviously there's more income potential in having some sort of online brand or business. So that's the reason, like even if it never happens, at least I tried. But yeah, I'm a long way off being close to that. Like, I don't even have close to 1,000 subs, for example, on YouTube. And then I need the 4,000 hours of watch time as well. YouTube's already put ads on some of my videos anyway, so it's like, that's a bit annoying, because I don't see a cent of that. But like, even if you have like a big Instagram page, you can get paid for ads or something, I think. You always see those meme pages that promote like OnlyFans girls. It's kind of annoying. That won't be me, but maybe I'll promote something useful. And then obviously YouTube sponsors. Obviously, like, you get sponsors on your videos like Squarespace and NordVPN and stuff like that. Like, I'd probably take a sponsorship from like NordVPN or Surfshark or a VPN of some sort, because I actually do use it. I'd probably do Squarespace because eventually I will make a website for these brands. But I wouldn't take something like Raid Shadow Legends. Like, could you imagine me sitting here talking about, using your time to study or learn how to invest or go to the gym, and then here I am advocating to play a video game? Like, that wouldn't make any sense. But in that case, all you need to do is just make a video and then talk about a sponsorship for a bit, and then you make a bit of coin. Like, that's more scalable than, like, what am I going to do? Work another hour per day in the office? Then what? Then I'm going to have to work another hour and another hour. Like, there's only so many hours you can work. So yeah, the monetization thing, that's what I mean. Now, for me to get this stat to 100%, that doesn't mean I need like a Mr. Beast level of subscribers. Funny enough, I never actually heard of him until this year, because I heard a lot of when you're just sussing that, like, oh, how to grow your online brand, because everyone goes through that phase. And then everyone kept mentioning this Mr. Beast guy. I'm like, who's this? Oh yeah, biggest YouTuber, apart from maybe PewDiePie. And then there's some other channel that I can't remember the name of. They got like 200 million, I think. But the point is, that's not like going to be like what I consider 100% for this stat. Maybe it's like 1 million subs or like 100,000, because that is a lot. So obviously once you get there, there's more work to be done, but you've done like a lot of the hard yards already. So that's what I'd consider 100%. And then back what I said before about the Pokemon thing, like, just because they're level 100, that means they're like as good as it gets for them, but it doesn't mean they're the absolute best. Like, a level 100 Luxray isn't as good as a level 100 Mewtwo. So they're kind of arbitrary, just numbers I like to just throw out. But, the point is, like, online brands, you could probably put it even lower than 10%, but like, the fact that I've actually got some sort of audience and I have like projected ambitions, I guess, like, I'm going to stick this through. I know what to do in terms of what I'm going to put out in terms of content. I've got a niche established. Like, a lot of this stuff is really, it's like a really good head start. So also for this, I only started in the middle of 2021, really. Like, I think I made the channel in March when I started hearing about, I'm pretty sure, like, I know Graham Stephan was talking about it. I don't know if he was a spark for the idea, but I just recall him. There's probably some others that I don't watch anymore, but I think the idea may have started with something that he said at one point. So, I actually made the channel, which was one step closer, but the whole like uploading videos and stuff only really started around the middle of 2021. So, about a year ago. There's plenty more years left to post content. Like, some people are in a much better position 1 year in, but considering the fact I pretty much work 7 days, I passed 2 like pretty hard subjects since then, had gym, learned all this extra stock market stuff. Like, I think I've done pretty decent considering all my other priorities, but there's a lot more work to be done. So not enough content on either brand to have a solid base. So I found some good videos from some other channels like throughout my life, but they don't really have many vids or haven't uploaded in a long time. So there's no point subscribing or following, because it looked like the channel was just dead. And like, they only had like 1 or 2 relevant videos to me, and the rest of them were like irrelevant. For example, back when I used to watch a lot of like gaming stuff before I got into the it was at this point where I pretty much knew everything about gym and I hadn't really gotten to the stock market yet. So in some spare time here and there, I'd watch video game stuff. If a YouTube channel talked about like Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon, I would watch those videos, but then they'd talk about other games that I'd never played. And I wouldn't subscribe because they talked about those other games more than they talked about Crash and Spyro. So I guess the point I'm getting at is I need a lot more like videos, especially videos that are relevant to what people want to watch, for new people to actually subscribe to the channel. I don't know what the percentage of viewers to subscribers is. I see YouTubers do that, like post this stat all the time when they're trying to beg for subs. I see it as the more non-subscribers, the better, because that means my channel is, I guess, reaching new audiences, if that makes sense. Like, obviously you don't expect everyone who watches your videos to subscribe, because I know I don't do that, and I know no one does that. Like, I saw this guy once say, 50% of yous who are watching aren't subscribed. We need to get that to 100%. I'm like, are you actually kidding me? 100%. That means your channel is going to be relegated just to your audience. Like, you want to grow it out. Like, don't be dumb. And don't be unrealistic with everyone who watches any one of your videos subscribing. That's not how it goes. So yeah, the checkpoint for halfway through 2022, I've got career at 15%, money at 60%, education and skills at 80%, aesthetics at 74%, investor at 35%, and online brands at 10%. So this is a projected update for the end of 2022. For my career, I'll have another 6 months of accounting experience, and I'll have 1 extra CPA unit done, hopefully, providing I pass. So far, this CPA unit looks pretty easy. So, maybe that might be famous last words, but with any luck, I'll have passed that exam because I'll have done enough work for it. Now, money, award raise, I get that at Woolies. I think there might be actually an award raise at my main job as well, but regardless, I've negotiated a pay rise of some sort. I don't know if that'll be enacted this year, but regardless, I do get a bit more money per hour at the supermarket. And obviously the fact that I'm working adds to the money stat. Like, you're always adding to the money stat if you're working, providing you don't have atrocious spending habits, but that's a story for another day. Education and skills, yeah, I'll have that 1 extra CPA unit, hopefully, and another 6 months experience in accounting and retail, so I'll fully be at the 10-year mark for retail. Now, as for aesthetics, you just have more time under the bar. Obviously, that always helps your aesthetics. And hormone optimization, I'll touch on that in another video, but there's a lot of untapped potential when you optimize your hormones. Now, investor, more time in the markets. It's kind of like at the gym, more time under the bar, more time in the markets, build resilience, get experience. I'll learn more about short-term trades, so I've been doing a bit more of those lately. Just not playing around with too much money, don't want to risk too much, but yeah, more short-term trades would be pretty good. Macroeconomic factors, just sort of keep learning what I'm already learning. Foreign exchange, along with foreign central banks. So I've started sort of looking at the European Central Bank and the Central Bank of England, as well as the RBA here in Australia and the Central Bank of Japan as well. Just other central banks. I think that if I look at their policies a bit more, it might help with the foreign exchange. So that's one thing to look at. But yeah, obviously the investor stat will have increased as you learn a bit more and get a bit more time in the markets. And online brands, I'll put out more videos, more Instagram posts, Twitter posts, and TikTok posts for both of the accounts I've got going on. Although I do have the LinkedIn and the Facebook, but the LinkedIn posts, there's not really much on LinkedIn at the moment. Eventually I'll put stuff there, but it's kind of unmonitored. And then Facebook's linked to Instagram. I don't have like specific Facebook posts yet, but obviously I can't put like all my effort into like maximizing the brand growth because I've got other stuff to do. And you see that happiness stat there. I won't talk about it too much because this video is already going to be a lot longer than I wanted it to be anyway, but basically mental health's pretty good. I know that's not the case for most people, but for me, I'm just really thankful that I have that. So that's why I've added that stat there. But yeah, I won't touch on that in this video because it's outside the scope of it. So projected update for 2023. So at the end of 2023, I will have another additional year of experience, and then hopefully I'll have my CPA qualification as well. That's providing I pass every exam I intend to enroll in. Now, money, by then, the pay rise will have well and truly kicked in at the accounting job, and there could be another award raise at Woolworths. So I'm pretty sure last financial year we had an award raise as well. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we did. And I guess if or when inflation continues to increase in Australia, the Fair Work Commission might mandate another pay rise. That's assuming that they want all the votes. Obviously, Gen Pop doesn't really understand the whole wage price spiral or how inflation works. So they'd probably pressure the Fair Work Commission for more raises. So there could be another raise at Woolies potentially, but obviously I'll have another year of work, so that's a bit more money in the bank. Now, education skills, 1 year of extra accounting experience, 1 year of extra retail experience, as well as being CPA qualified. Obviously, that's good for that stat level. Aesthetics, again, just more time under the bar. Like, I kind of know what I'm doing in terms of training. Like, I know, like, you know, training frequency, form, range of motion, optimal volume, intensity, you know, reps in reserve, that kind of stuff. So I kind of got that down packed. It's more so just getting more time under the bar. And as I mentioned before, hormone optimization, there is a lot of untapped potential there. So if I optimize those, the aesthetics stat will shoot up, but I need to just look at the side effects of the hormone optimization. So investor, that'll obviously be a fair bit more because I'll just continue to keep learning about it. I'll have more time in the markets. So yeah, that's only set to increase as well. Online brands, with any luck, they'll be a bit higher than what they are now. But yeah, I'll just keep posting more videos, more Instagram posts, Twitter posts, and TikToks. By then, I may get into LinkedIn and Facebook a bit more, but the problem is next year is likely to be more of a repeat of what I'm doing this year. Like, you know, this is just like a chapter in my life where I need to just grind out the 7-day work weeks to stockpile money and experience, and then get my CPA done, continue learning about investing and stuff, and then I can change the game plan later as need be. But for now, this is just the game plan I have to roll with, because if it's not broke, don't fix it, and it's working pretty well at the moment. So yeah, that's the projected update for the end of 2023. So here are some other examples I've just jotted down. Now, I didn't put too much thought into like these stats or whatever, but they're just like a rough guideline. So it's to show you not to compare yourself to other people, because everyone's like got their own different unique skill set and niche. So I've just chucked a bunch of random examples based on the stats that I've given myself for life. You'll see later in the slides that I've given an example of another like stat category for something that involves like different stats rather than just career and like money and aesthetics, for example. So example 1 here, we've got a fitness influencer. Usually they have a lot of money because they shill a bunch of shit, and obviously they've got a big online brand because that's how they make their money. And then obviously they have to look good, but more often than not, they're not the brightest of folk. In terms of like an actual career, they don't really, I guess, have one. I guess you could bump that up and say that, well, their, I guess, fitness influencer stuff is their career. But for me, I'm putting that in the sense of like employment at an organization. That's how I gauge the career in terms of this stat anyway. But for example, fitness influencer, like, yeah, they trounced me in 3 of those categories. I beat them in the other 3, but like I'm not really comparing myself to them because we're on different journeys and we got different aspirations. So that's fine and dandy. They're good in their area, I'm good in mine. Another example here, a YouTube finance channel. So normally they're pretty, like most of the good ones have actually worked in the field of finance before. So like, for example, the Maverick of Wall Street, he like actually works for some sort of smaller hedge fund. So he actually knows his stuff, and he actually is employed in the area, so he's got every right to speak on it. They obviously make a lot of money when you're working in that field, and the CPM, I think that's what it's called, and YouTube pays pretty well for finance people, so they probably make a lot of money. And the fact that they know about finance as well is like a good transferable skill, especially since I just said they usually have worked in that field before, so they've got pretty stable employment. And then online brand, obviously they've got a big finance YouTube channel, they've got a big brand, they've got a lot of subscribers. So yeah, it's funnily enough, notice how I put investor as quite low. The ones I watch know what they're talking about, but a lot of them don't. Like a lot of them are pretty stupid. They just invest in random stocks. And the problem is the Gen Pop sees that, they see they got a lot of money in those stocks and think, oh, they must know what they're doing. Well, a lot of that money comes from their YouTube ad revenue and sponsorships and stuff. and they just chuck that into the stock market, and that's why the values of their stocks are high, because they put a lot of money into it. Where do they get that money? From YouTube. So a lot of them aren't really good investors. From what I've seen. The ones I watch are, because I've sifted through all the rubbish, which is what I mentioned earlier in the video. Go watch Maverick of Wall Street. He's a good investor, and he will teach you a lot about finance. So if you're going to watch anyone in finance, watch the Maverick of Wall Street. I think I touched on him later in the slides as well, but yeah, go watch him. Now this example, other people you may know. So I guess this is more so just the whole average person thing, which I was like kind of comparing myself to in the video. I know I said don't compare yourself to others, but like I guess comparing yourself to people, I guess, worse off than you puts it into context that your grind is going well, but that's a topic we can talk about another time. But as you can see, their career's probably not too great because it's more so like a dead-end career, or they don't have like the extra additional qualification. Maybe they're content with a lesser role, which is fine. I mean, technically I'm content with a lesser role because I don't have aspirations to move to like London or New York and work for a massive corporation. You know, I'm content with what I'm doing. They have a bit of money, but they're not super rich. They kind of have some transferable skills, but more often than not, they don't really go to the gym. They don't really know how the stock market works, and they don't really have any sort of online brands to potentially monetize and scale up their income in the future. Another example here, annoying TikTokers. I don't actually have I have a TikTok for the brands, but I don't have one personally. But the amount of TikToks that get posted to Instagram, or people reposting TikToks onto their Insta stories or their Snap stories, I pretty much have the app anyway. But yeah, a lot of them will make money because, you know, just brands these days. And then obviously they got a large following, so they got good online brands. A lot of the times they have to look good too, because that's how they make their money. But they don't really have any aspirations past the age of 25. They're not really going to do much. They're dumb as dog shit. So they don't really have any educational skills, or they know anything about investing. Not even investing TikTokers. I've seen them just absolutely eviscerate on YouTube. They don't know what they're doing. So yeah, a bit of a violation on them, but who cares? Now, another example is your standard 9-to-5 career grind person. So they got good money. Obviously they got like good career growth, and they've got good education and skills, but the problem is that's all they really tend to care about. Again, these are just sort of just arbitrary numbers, but you get the point. Like, they don't usually gym or take care of themselves too much. They're too focused with their work to worry about stock market or anything like that. And then they don't have some sort of online brand, so their income's just tied to their, I guess, employment. I mean, the same as me at the moment. With any luck, that'll change later in the future, but if not, again, I've just got a portfolio to work into my career, so there'll be no net L's for me. And then, yeah, just to recap, ideally me at the end of 2023, career 50% once I got my CPA and a couple years experience, but I'll need several years experience to get that up further. Money, I'll need a decent pay rise for that to be up further. Education and skills, that'll be pretty close to being maxed out. Aesthetics, if I optimize those hormones, then I reckon I'll be around 90%, but if not, I'll still probably hover around 74, 75%. But yeah, it'll come down to that hormone optimization. Investor, 50%. Yeah, because then that I'll only have like a total of 2021, 22, like 2.5 years total in the market. Maybe a bit less, but yeah, that really can't be any higher than 50%. Although I did like learn a lot and will have learned a lot by that point, I just simply won't have the time in the markets to justify being any higher than that. And online brands, 20%. Yeah, hopefully it'll be more, but there's only so much I can do given my current priorities and spare times in my schedule. So yeah, we'll keep working at it. But yeah, these are just some examples. You know, you don't have to look at this and say, oh, well, I need to bump up my aesthetic stat and my investor stat and my online brands and career. You know, maybe you'll be focused on different areas, just like those other 5 examples I've given. So you may have other aspirations. You may have different objectives and main missions and side quests in your life. So this slide, it's like the same color code and all that, and roughly the same stat figures. But for example, I left career there. I find that, to be pretty important, right? But for example, you might be good at music, which you can then use to monetize an online brand. I probably should have put online brands in there too, but maybe you're good at music. I used to play piano when I was younger. I don't anymore because I was forced to do it. I didn't really enjoy it as a kid. So, but yeah, I kind of still know how to play a little bit, but it's definitely not enough to even put like 1% when you compare yourself to how good other people are. But for example, yeah, maybe you do music. Maybe your importance and your priorities rely around like your friendship circle and your family time. Like, I guess that's important for me, but like, I'm not too fussed. Like, my friends are busy too, not as busy as me, but like, they'll always be there. They understand if I can't hang out, and we'll always catch up for someone's birthday or some momentous occasion, right? And then family, we're all busy too, but like, we don't like hang out and go on family nights every week, but maybe that's what's important to you. So maybe you want to look at increasing that stat. Everyone's got their own different preferences, that's fine. Dating life, another one. I haven't talked about that much here, but obviously I'm more of like my niche is more so like self-improvement and that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of boys seem to care about this. Fun fact, I literally have 0 female subscribers at the time of recording. But yeah, like maybe you care about your dating life. I don't, but that might be a stat you're looking at increasing. Sports skills, maybe you still play sport. I haven't played basketball since 2019. Finished off my like basketball career with a championship, so went out on top like Michael Jordan did with the Chicago Bulls. Maybe that's important to you. Like that was important to me in 2019 and 2018 and 2017 too. Like my graph bar looked different. Like you could replace investor with basketball, for example, and replace like career with university grades for those previous graphs in my life. But, basically the point of this is like maybe you have different preferences, and that's fine. Maybe you want to increase your stats in other areas. Like don't look at my stats and be like, oh, I need to copy that. Like maybe you've got a different skill set. Maybe you've got a different game, I'm playing my game, maybe you're playing yours and your game's different. So just to recap on all the checkpoints. So this checkpoint is basically, I guess, the brand name growth for these 2 sort of little brand names I've got here. So that's just a checkpoint of what I've got at this point in time. Obviously, hopefully that'll grow, but that's a lot more than it was this time last year. I had 0 subs and 0 followers, and I'm pretty sure I didn't even have a set up account for most of them anyway. So that is a huge leap from what I was last year. Now this checkpoint for 2022, general individual life. So at this point in the year, I worked 161 shifts. So this does include like maybe a 4-hour night shift I did at Woolies, but it's still a shift of work regardless. Now this year in total, I've had about $46,421.30 come through as gross income, not including super. But that's just the income that's from the pay slips. It may include like some of that money may have been like earned last year, like late last year, because of how like the weeks work. But like the point is, I pretty much earned that so far this year. So that's pretty good. Now it looks like we're on track to earn like 92,000, but the problem is some of those Woolies shifts were public holiday shifts, which there's not really a lot of public holidays left in the year. Or at least not ones that I'll end up working. But hopefully I get a pay rise at my main job earlier than what I think I'm going to get it. So hopefully we can try and aim for that $90,000 gross income. I said on an Instagram post recently that I earned $95,000 including super. Like I do include super, but most people don't. So if you're going to not include super, then we're going to aim for $90,000 without super. That kind of doesn't make sense, but like the point is we're trying to aim for a big number here. So as you can see in the columns, January, February, March, April, May, June, that's basically the shifts I worked in each of those months, the gross income I earned for that corresponding month. the amount of gym sessions I had in that month, the professional development, so basically what I did with my study. So the 50-page index, 133-page index, basically that's just how I was studying for my tax exam. In the month of May, didn't do anything related to it because I was really burnt out from all the cramming I did in April. As you can see from the only 7 gym sessions I had in April, like, can you tell I was really cramming for this exam? And then, yeah, June, found out early June I passed the exam, so that was a huge load off my shoulders. So in January, you can see 406 YouTube subscribers. Most of the growth came in January, so that's really good. And then it went up a little bit, dropped down a little bit, but, you know, that's normal when you don't upload as frequently as you should, like I do. Also, another thing is, chances are it was someone who'd seen a comment of mine on First Man's video, or they saw my like First Man and Hamza video, and then they got caught up in the self-improvement sort of like hype train, and then they died down and they just culled everyone. So that's probably what has happened there. Could also be bot accounts, I don't know, but you know, at least I got, you know, like, I'm grateful for everyone who's still here. You know, the fact that I have more than 0 is just mind-blowing to me. I do not take it for granted. Now, here's a little checkpoint of like the total grind all up. So I guess this includes everything. So I've spent 1,343 hours at work with 165 shifts all up. Now, it's important to note that that includes, like at the bottom there, I don't know, you can see it's pretty small, but it includes up to the 3rd. So like, it includes some shifts that I did that weren't included in the first document, but that's why the last document said 161 shifts and this one says 165. The point is, it's a fair bit of shifts. And then you can see they're split into the days I spent at the office and the days I spent at the supermarket. And then there's the gym sessions, and then how many hours of gym roughly I had, as well as the study hours, and as well as the hours I spent on side hustles. And then there's also social events, and extra work is like Botox or laser or dental work. I think there's a bit more that you can see. The top 2 rows for extra work, they're blank. I think there was some work in there. I just haven't gone back to check. But, you know, the point is I'm tracking all that stuff as well. 17 social events. It's kind of a lot more than I thought I had, but I guess there were some nights where I did hang out with friends and stuff. So, you know, I'm not a complete robot. I do have some friends. This might be a bit low for what your preference is. Again, we all have our own preferences. For me, instead of like trying to plan something on a Friday or Saturday night, I spend that like working on a side hustle or studying, or I usually spend Saturday nights at the gym and then Friday nights on a side hustle. But, you know, that's subject to change. It doesn't really matter, but that's usually what I prefer. If someone plans something in advance, I'm sure I can make room and make time for it. For the total work hours and work shifts, if they're in blue, that indicates I worked 7 days that week, or I worked 7 shifts. It's not completely accurate because sometimes I'll do like, maybe I'll have a day off the office for whatever reason, but then I'll do like an extra night at Woolies one of the nights. So it's not technically like a full day. It's just a fourth, like 4 extra hours, but it includes like the Excel doc counts that as like a day, but like, it's not like I'm trying to accurately determine how many weeks I work 7 days or whatever. It's just kind of a formula that I've just chucked in there. And then if you can see 2 of them have 7 days, but they don't have like the hours next to them colored in, that means I worked less than 58 hours, which would imply that I had a day off the office and I worked an extra Woolies shift at night, which you can see next to them in those corporate days that aren't fully yellow. So basically, if the corporate days are fully yellow, that means I worked a full week there. With the supermarket, if they're fully green, that means I worked a full weekend there. The gym columns, like the further along the blue bar is, the more days in the gym, the more days in the week I went to the gym. And then same thing for study and side hustle. Can you tell when I had my exam? Around the middle, where I spent not a lot of time on the side hustle or gym, but the study hours were really bulking up there. So anyway, that's just a rough checkpoint for the total 2022 grind. So 2022, the first half checkpoint from January 2022 to June 2022. For my career, I attained another 6 months of experience. I finished Unit 3 out of 6 of my CPA quest. As for money, I earned around $46,000 from 2 employment sources, which doesn't include super for the purposes of this specific calculation. Education and skills, as mentioned before, I finished Unit 3 out of 6 of the CPA quest, and I added another 6 months more experience in accounting and retail. As for aesthetics, I had a rough 5-day training split, and I learned the importance of hormone optimization. I'm slowly learning more of it now, but I didn't realize how important it really was. As for my investor stat, I became aware of Lynn Alden, Steve Hanke, and the Maverick of Wall Street, 3 fantastic sources of information. There are a few others, like another one I recently found was called In the Interests of the People, and they're mainly like Australian, but they do have good global macroeconomic news and like insights as well. But you know, I didn't know of these guys last year, and they've been such a big help, so they're noteworthy. So they're important enough to mention. I shorted my first stocks, which is kind of a big deal in the investing world. I did some foreign exchange trades, and I learnt about several other cogs in the interconnected economy / stock market. So there's a lot of progress in the investor stat too. Now, as for online brands, YouTube channel started to gain traction. That video I made on First Man and Hamza, that was kind of like the end of 2021. I think it got uploaded a couple of days before that year ended, but it didn't really start to take off until early Jan. And then I uploaded several YouTube videos, which I kind of had uploaded some in late 2021, but most of them have been in the first half of this year. I loaded up the Instagram accounts. So yeah, the Instagram accounts now have a lot of posts. If you actually scroll down, you'll see there wasn't really much being posted last year. Like the first posts were maybe towards like the last week or two of December 2021, but most of the posts at this point in time were in this year. And yeah, I posted some TikToks as well. I don't think I'd ever really use the app until this year. Like I used it a little bit in December, but yeah, most of the TikToks again are posted this year. And yeah, I got my feet in terms of growing a brand. Like it goes back to what I touched on before, but like I'm really fully committed to this stuff. So the game plan for the second half of 2022, career, so pay rise at the office, as I mentioned before, that was a pretty tough conversation to have. That was the first salary negotiation I've ever had. So that's a big deal. That actually happened on the 1st. So yeah, technically the second half of 2022. I have an objective of finishing Unit 4 out of 6 of my CPA quest. Now, as for money, pay rise at both employment income sources. So I've already pretty much got that at Woolies. At the time of recording, it's a Monday night. We get paid Tuesday night at Woolies. So tomorrow night, I'll go check that pay slip and see how much extra it is. I think it's 4.6%. I did some rough calculations, but I figured I may as well just actually wait to see how much it is rather than try and guess. But yeah, pay rise at both jobs, and then obviously just continue working, continue stacking that bag. Education and skills. Yeah, finish Unit 4 out of 6 of the CPA quest. I'll achieve my 10-year anniversary milestone at the supermarket job as well, providing I don't get fired in the next 3 months. In the next month and a half, actually. Wow, that went quick. Aesthetics. So I'm probably going to drip back to a 4-day training split. So I had a 3-week stretch of where I actually managed to do my whole 5-day workout routine. Normally I have something that pops up during the week that prevents me from working out 5 days a week, and I have to work out 4 days instead. Now I could obviously always just work out on another night, but the problem is I have other stuff to do. Like I'm not gonna ditch like study or ditch side hustle work or something like that to go to the gym again. Like if I have to sod off a gym session, I'll just take that L. But yeah, I was extremely exhausted at the end of those 3 weeks, more so than I'd ever been in. I was extremely exhausted at the end of those 3 weeks, more so than I'd been in a long time. So the fact of the matter is I just can't handle a 5-day split. I could maybe back off the volume, but in 2021, most of my training was a 4-day split, and I tended to handle that just fine. So I think I'll go back to a 4-day training split And the extra day will be spent on like study or side hustle work. So maybe I'll be able to pump out more videos, learn a bit more about the stock market, or maybe I won't have to stress as much around exam time, because I was really stressed for the tax exam. Like, you have no idea how freaked out I was. Like, I was so stressed, and I don't want to have to go through that again. So if I have an extra day or an extra night of study per week, that'll really help me prepare for the exam. So instead of going Sunday night, I'll probably sod that off, because I have to be at work at 7 a.m. on a Sunday, so that's pretty exhausting. And it's usually my weakest sesh, because obviously I've had the least amount of sleep throughout the whole week. So it's ideally the night that I want to ditch gym, because it's the night I have the least energy of all of them. So on a Saturday night, I'll alternate between my usual upper and arm sesh. I'll do that on one fortnight, and then I'll do that on 1 week, and then the other week I'll switch to the usual Sunday leg workout, and then switch those two. And I'll keep my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday training splits the same. So I won't actually hit legs 2 times every week or upper body 2 times every week. They'll both be hit 3 times every fortnight, but that's fine. Again, if I investigate the hormone enhancement area or the hormone enhancement data, that'll really help a lot more than that extra training day, but that's part of the game plan. We'll see how I execute it. Now, Investor continued the open world exploring. So if those of you played an open world game, you know what that means. Basically just explore at your own will. So I'll continue learning at my own will. I don't really have like set objectives like I do with the CPA thing or the aesthetics thing. Like, basically the game plan is more time under the bar and hormone optimization. Investor, like I mentioned earlier in the video about foreign exchange and stuff like that, but really I don't have any bounds. Just open world exploring. You've got some rough ideas, but continue learning at your own will. And for online brands, again, similar to open world investor exploring, just continue the content creation. So that's how I'm treating my life like a video game in 2022. There's a lot more stats to level up. There's a lot more work to be done, but we've got to play the game. That is all.